Listen to me closely. Wake up every morning and prophecy over your own life. Hey future, I bless my family. I bless my finances. I bless my body. I bless my business. I bless the work of my hands. I bless every door that's opening before me. You don't create your future with your hands. Pain. You create your future with your mouth, because your words are not just sounds, they're seeds. And every seed you speak goes into the soil of your life. Pain, waiting for the right conditions to grow. See, God designed this universe with a voice. He didn't build the world with a hammer and nails. He spoke it into existence. Pain, let there be light. And there was light. So if you're made in His image, and you are, then you've got the same creative power inside your mouth. Pain, you can't just think your way into a new season. You've got to speak your way into it. Because your words are containers. They carry faith or they carry fear. Pain. They carry victory or they carry defeat. They carry blessing or they carry bondage. The reason some people stay stuck is not because their potential is small. Pain because their confession is wrong. They keep saying, I can't catch a break. I'm so tired. Nothing ever works out for me. And life says, pain. All right, if that's the order, I'll serve it. Your words authorize your atmosphere, are the CEO of your own environment. Pain, if you don't like what you're seeing, change what you're saying. Stop cursing your own harvest with careless speech. Start blessing it. Start calling it in. Pain, and start commanding your morning. Say, doors are opening for me. My steps are ordered. Favor follows me everywhere I go. I'm walking in divine timing. I'm attracting opportunities, resources and relationships that push me toward purpose. Because listen, the world responds to a voice of faith. The universe is voice activated. Pain, it doesn't react to fear, it reacts to authority. When you speak faith-filled words, heaven stands at attention. When you decree something aligned with divine truth, and angels go to work to perform it, but when you speak doubt, negativity, or self-sabotage, you send confusion into your own camp. Pain, that's why you must train your tongue to agree with your destiny, not your difficulty. Don't describe the storm. Declare the outcome. Pain, don't talk about the mountain. Talk to the mountain. Don't repeat what the world says. Repeat what God said about you. Pain, if He said you're the head and not the tail, stop speaking like you're beneath. If He said you're blessed going in and blessed coming out, stop speaking lack. Pain, if He said He'll open windows of heaven, stop saying doors are closed. Because whatever you magnify with your mouth becomes your master. Pain, your mouth is the steering wheel of your life. If your words keep pointing backward, your life will never move forward. So from this day forward, pain, make a decision. Your mouth is a miracle instrument, not a complaint device. Guard it, discipline it. Use it to design your destiny, not to describe your disaster. Pain, you can't stop storms from forming, but you can stop them from defining you. You can't control every outcome, but you can control every utterance. Pain, when your confession aligns with God's intention, the impossible becomes inevitable. So the next time you feel pressure, don't panic, proclaim. Pain, don't react. Reveal what's already true about you. Speak your future like it's already finished, because in the realm of faith it is. Pain, bless your future with your mouth. The law of spoken words is not just a principle, it's a spiritual law. And once you learn to master your mouth, pain, you'll stop chasing blessings and blessings will start chasing you. You don't create your future with your hands, you create it with your mouth. Pain, everything you are experiencing today is a reflection of something you once said about yourself, your life, or your situation. Pain, words are not random sounds, they are creative forces wrapped in syllables. Every word you speak carries energy, and that energy becomes matter over time. Pain, when you understand that your mouth is a spiritual instrument of creation, you stop treating language as casual conversation and start using it as intentional construction. Pain, the future is not waiting for you to arrive, it is waiting for you to declare it. Pain, your destiny begins forming the moment your words leave your lips, because they act as blueprints that your spirit, your actions, and even your environment start to follow. And your mouth is a seed planter and your life is the soil. Every phrase you speak, whether positive or negative, plants something in the unseen realm. Pain, the soil doesn't choose what to grow, it simply grows whatever seed it receives. That's why careless speech is dangerous. It plants weeds in the garden of your destiny. If you constantly speak defeat, scarcity, or fear, don't be surprised when those things start appearing in your life. But if you speak faith, victory, and abundance, pain, you give permission for those realities to manifest. The power of life and death is not in your situation, it's in your tongue. The future is not something you wait for. Pain, it's something you speak into existence one word at a time. The words you speak today are the prophecies of your tomorrow. every time you open your mouth. Pain, you are authoring your next chapter. Some people talk themselves into cycles of pain, while others talk themselves into seasons of breakthrough. And it's not that life favors one person over another. It's that one has learned to use their mouth as a key, while the other use it as a cage. Pain, your words either unlock doors or build walls. They can release favor or block it. You can't talk defeat all week and expect victory to meet you on Sunday. Pain, you can't curse your finances with statements like, "I'm always broke," and then pray for overflow. The law of speech doesn't bend for emotions. It follows alignment. Pain, what you continually confess, you eventually possess. Think about how creation itself began. The divine voice didn't hope, wish, or think light into existence. It spoke it. Let there be light, and light appeared. That same principle operates in your life today. You are made in the image of the Creator. Pain, which means you are designed to create with your words. If you speak lack, you'll live in lack. If you speak increase, you'll start to see opportunities that lead to it. Pain, your words are magnets. They attract the circumstances that match their frequency. When you speak with belief, your world reorganizes itself to fulfill what you declared. The most powerful tool you have for changing your life is not your money, your connections, or your education. It's your mouth. Pain, the future you desire is waiting on your declaration, and once you speak it with conviction. Pain, everything in creation starts moving to bring it to pass. Words are not just a method of communication, they are the building blocks of reality. Pain, from the very beginning of time, creation itself was not formed by hands but by sound. The divine voice spoke and the universe responded. Pain, let there be, and there was light. That moment established a spiritual pattern, a law of creation, that everything seen was first spoken before it was manifested. Pain, this means the world you live in right now is not simply physical, it is vocal. It is shaped and sustained by words. Since you are created in the image of the Creator, pain, that same creative power has been placed inside your mouth. When you speak, you are not just making noise, you are forming something. You are sending instruction to the atmosphere that shaped the unseen into the seen. Every word carries vibration and energy always produces form. Pain, you don't have to understand how it happens, you just need to understand that it does. When your words align with truth, purpose, and faith, pain, and they carry a frequency that attracts order, clarity, and creation. When they align with fear, anger, or limitation, they attract confusion and chaos. Pain, the universe responds to words like a well-trained servant. It performs whatever command is given. That's why what you speak becomes your experience. If you say, I can't, creation stops. If you say, I can, doors start to open. The world listens to your words and begins arranging itself accordingly. Pain, you are constantly either constructing your life or deconstructing it, sentence by sentence. Your mouth is a spiritual instrument with creative authority. Pain, it doesn't matter whether you believe it consciously, the law still works. Just like gravity doesn't ask for your permission, the law of words doesn't either. Pain, you can't escape it. You can only learn to master it. When you speak with intention, faith, and divine alignment, you activate that creative power. Pain, you call things that are not yet visible as though they already exist. Your speech becomes a bridge between heaven's plan and earth's manifestation. Pain, it's not about pretending something is true. It's about aligning your words with what is spiritually true before it appears physically. Pain, the creative power of words is not imagination. It's participation in the same process through which the universe was made. Think about how you use words daily. Pain, use command to describe, to express. But what if you understood that every sentence has creative consequences? Pain, what if you realized that you can literally speak peace into a storm, provision into a void, and healing into pain? You would guard your mouth differently. Pain, you would choose your words with the same care an artist chooses colors for a masterpiece. When you speak in alignment with faith, pain, you're not hoping something will change. You're creating the change. The same voice that once said, "Let there be," now waits to be heard through you. Pain, the creative force that formed the galaxies is in your tongue, and every time you speak with faith, pain, you echo the voice that made the world. Your mouth is the switch that turns your atmosphere on or off. Everything around you is responding to the vibration of your voice. Pain, even when you can't see it. Words are invisible, but their impact is tangible. When you speak, you give permission for certain forces to operate in your life. Pain, you authorize the direction of your day, the tone of your relationships, and the flow of your circumstances. Pain, your mouth is not just a physical instrument. It's a spiritual remote control that can shift the entire atmosphere around you. Every time you speak, something moves. Pain, heaven lifts, the earth responds, and even your body reacts. If you speak peace, peace starts to fill the room. If you speak anger or defeat, chaos begins to form. Pain, you are never just talking, you are transmitting. When you realize that your environment takes orders from your mouth, pain, you start to understand why it's crucial to guard your speech. You can't build a life of victory while speaking a language of defeat. Pain, you can't declare darkness, expect light to manifest. Your environment mirrors your mouth. If you walk into a room and fill it with gratitude, joy, and expectation, pain, the atmosphere begins to match that energy. If you fill it with complaint, criticism, and fear, it starts to suffocate the very blessings meant to reach you. Pain, that's why your words don't just affect your emotions. They command your surroundings. What you say becomes what you see. You are the CEO of your own atmosphere. Pain, that means your words issue the instructions and everything else follows the order. If you want to experience peace, speak peace. If you want opportunities, speak increase. Pain, you can't control every person or situation, but you can control the atmosphere you carry into them. People sense the tone of your spirit long before they hear your story. Pain, and that tone is determined by your words. When your mouth is filled with faith, it becomes impossible for hopelessness to survive near you. Pain, when your mouth is filled with doubt, no amount of good circumstances can lift you out of negativity. What you speak dominates what you feel. Pain, what you feel sets the frequency of your environment. Every word you speak releases a vibration that either harmonizes or disrupts your surroundings. Pain, some people live under a cloud of heaviness not because of external conditions, but because of their internal conversation. Pain, they've been speaking defeat for so long that their atmosphere has learned to obey it. The moment you decide to change your vocabulary, your environment begins to shift. Pain, your home, your business, your relationships, all of them start to respond differently when your speech becomes aligned with gratitude, vision, faith. Pain, you don't need to wait for your surroundings to improve before you speak better. Your words are the key that transforms them. Speak warmth into coldness, and order to confusion, and light into darkness. The atmosphere around you is voice activated. Pain, your mouth holds the authority to shape it. Every single day, every word you speak carries a vibration that holds either faith or fear, life or death, a creation or destruction. Words are not neutral, they are carriers of energy, each one filled with the power to build or break, to lift or limit. Every time you open your mouth, pain, you are releasing something spiritual into the air, something that will either attract divine alignment or repel it. This is why it's not enough to simply think positively. Pain, your thoughts must be transferred into sound, because the spoken word gives shape to what you believe. Faith that remains silent stays dormant, but faith that is spoken becomes active. When you speak words filled with faith, you are giving heaven permission to move on your behalf. When you speak words filled with fear, pain, you are giving the enemy access to manipulate your emotions and circumstances. Fear and faith are both belief systems. They are both ways of seeing what isn't visible yet. And faith is believing that good will come. Fear is believing that harm will come. Both are prophecies of the future, but only one aligns with divine truth. Pain, so every time you speak, you are which prophecy to activate. When you say, I can't handle this, you are authorizing fear to shape your reality. When you say, pain, I can do all things through strength beyond myself, you are releasing faith that invites supernatural help. And the atmosphere cannot hold both fear and faith at the same time. One must dominate the other. The one that dominates your words will dominate your world. When you speak faith, pain, you are aligning your mouth with divine order. You're not denying the problem, you're declaring a higher truth over it. Pain, faith-filled words don't pretend that isn't real, they simply refuse to let pain have the final word. They speak the promise in the face of the problem. Pain, when you speak faith, you're not waiting for evidence, you are creating evidence. You are building the bridge that connects what you believe to what you will eventually see. Pain, that's why silence in moments of fear is dangerous. It allows negative thoughts to multiply unchecked. But when you speak faith aloud, you disrupt fear's authority and remind your mind who is in control. Your voice becomes a weapon, and your words become your shield. On the other hand, pain, words of fear drain power from your soul. When you constantly speak about what might go wrong, who might betray you, or how things might fail, pain, you are energizing the very outcomes you dread. You give fear a voice, and once it has a voice, it begins to shape your vision. Pain, you start noticing problems instead of possibilities, limitations instead of opportunities. Pain, fearful words create a fog that blinds you from seeing the open doors already in front of you. They distort your perception and make you feel smaller than your situation. That's why fear-based speech is not harm in the worst way. It builds realities that were never meant to exist. Faith-filled words, however, clear the fog. They act like light breaking through darkness. illuminating paths that were hidden before. When you speak faith, pain, your mind begins to search for confirmation of what you've said, and soon your circumstances start to match your confession. This is the spiritual law of alignment. Your outer world eventually reflects your inner language. That's why successful, peaceful, pain, and powerful people are careful with their words. They know that even casual speech has creative consequences. They don't just describe life, they direct it. Pain, they use words to instruct their emotions instead of letting emotions instruct their words. They understand that every phrase carries potential. Pain in every declaration is a seed that must produce a harvest. Speaking faith doesn't mean denying reality. It means declaring a superior one. Pain, speaking what God says about your life instead of what fear says about your situation. Fear will tell you to retreat, but faith tells you to rise. Pain, fear will whisper that you're not enough, but faith declares that you already have enough. Fear says you're alone, but faith reminds you that divine strength surrounds you. And every day you have a choice: speak faith and invite light, or speak fear and invite shadows. The words you choose determine which world you live in, and over time, pain, the frequency of your voice becomes the rhythm of your destiny. Negative speech is one of the most subtle but powerful forms of self-sabotage. Pain, every time you declare something hopeless or limiting, you are programming your life to obey defeat. Words shape patterns in your subconscious mind. Pain, the subconscious doesn't differ in truth, and exaggeration only follows instruction. When you repeatedly say, "I can't catch a break, I'm unlucky," or "things never work out for me," your mind and environment take those declarations as commands. Pain, your body begins to feel the weight of those words, your energy drops, and your choices start aligning with that belief. Eventually, pain, your life becomes a reflection of your confession. What started as frustration spoken in a moment of weakness becomes the script your future reads from. Pain, the danger of negative speech, it disguises itself as realism. Many people defend their words by saying, "Pain, I'm just telling it like it is," without realizing that by speaking only what is, they prevent what could be. Words of defeat trap you in the present problem. Pain, while words of faith release you into a future possibility. Every complaint keeps you anchored to the past. Every declaration of hope pulls you toward destiny. Pain, the universe listens closely not to your intentions but to your instructions. Whatever you repeatedly say, you authorize. So when you continually speak about how tired, broke, or unlucky you are signing a spiritual contract that ensures those experiences repeat themselves. Pain, life doesn't serve you what you deserve, it serves you what you declare. The reason negative speech is so destructive is that it works against the divine design of your being. You were created to create. Pain, and your words are meant to align with that creative purpose. When you use them to curse instead of bless, to complain instead of command, pain, you are reversing the flow of that power. You begin constructing walls where doors were meant to be. The spiritual law of speech doesn't distinguish between sarcasm, complaint, or prayer. It simply manifests what it hears most often. So when your mouth keeps feeding your life the language of defeat, pain, your world rearranges itself to match that vibration. You find yourself surrounded by frustration, lack, and delay, not because destiny denied you, but because your words did. Pain, to break that cycle, you must become aware of your language. Listen to yourself throughout the day. Pain, notice how often you describe life from a place of limitation instead of vision. Every time you say something negative about your situation, pain, stop and replace it with a declaration of faith. Instead of "I can't," say "I'm learning how." Instead of "this is impossible," say "there's a way." Pain, and I will find it. This small shift begins retraining your mind and redirecting your atmosphere. Your words will start working for you instead of against you. Negative speech keeps you stuck, but transformed speech sets you free. The moment you stop cursing your future with your mouth, pain, the same words that once trapped you will begin to deliver you into the life you were meant to live. If your mouth was never designed to be a weapon against your own destiny. Pain, it was designed to be a tool for creation and blessing. Yet so many people use their words to curse what they want God to bless. They complain about their circumstances, criticize their own progress, and confess failure before even taking the first step. Pain, every negative statement you speak about your future is like placing a shadow over your own path. You cannot walk into light while speaking darkness. Pain, that's why it's so important to use your mouth to bless your future, not burden it. Every blessing begins as a word, and every curse begins the same way. And when you speak words of life, faith, and expectation, you give permission for good things to grow in your direction. When you speak doubt, frustration, or fear, pain, you choke the very seeds of success that are trying to sprout in your life. The principle is simple: whatever you bless grows, whatever you curse dies. If you want your health to improve, bless your body with words of strength and healing. If you want your finances to expand, pay and bless your money with gratitude and vision instead of frustration and complaint. If you want relationships to flourish, speak peace, forgiveness, and connection into them. The power to bless is the power to build. Paying. You don't need to have everything figured out to start speaking blessings. You just need to align your mouth with your desired outcome. Paying. The universe doesn't wait for perfection. It responds to direction. When you begin declaring blessings over your life, even when nothing looks different. Paying, you activate spiritual forces that start aligning situations, people, and opportunities in your favor. Paying, many people think blessings are something that must come from outside sources, but in truth, your words are the first and most consistent blessings you will ever receive. The language you use every day sets the tone for your entire life. Paying, saying things like, "I'm always tired," "that can't afford," or "good things never happen to me," are not harmless statements. They're self-imposed limits. But when you start saying, "Paying, I'm getting stronger every day. Abundance flows to me easily. I'm favored wherever I go," your spirit begins to rise to that level of belief. Paying, you're not lying to yourself. You're training your environment to reflect the truth of who you are becoming. And words of blessing prepare the ground for your harvest long before you see any visible growth. Every morning, your mouth should become a source of blessing over your life. Pay and bless your day before it begins. Bless your mind before challenges arise. Children, your work, your decisions, and your future. Paying, words of blessing release divine alignment. They create a shield of favor around everything you touch. Speaking blessings is not just about motivation. Paying, it's about activation. It's the act of calling for the reality that already exists in spiritual form, but is not yet materialized in physical form. Paying, when your mouth becomes an instrument of blessing, your future becomes fertile ground for miracles. Your words prepare the way, your faith waters the seed. Pay, and your consistency brings the harvest closer. With every declaration you make, the universe responds to sound before it responds to sight. Paying, everything created has been programmed to move according to spoken vibration. Paying, that's why your words hold such deep creative authority. They are the keys that unlock invisible doors. The world itself is voice activated. Paying, it reacts not to motion, not to fear, but to command. Faith-filled words carry a frequency that heaven recognizes and obeys. When you speak from a place of conviction, you set spiritual law in motion. Every decree you make in alignment with truth releases invisible forces that begin arranging events, opportunities. Pain and people bring that declaration into reality. Fear may scream loudly, but faith speaks with authority, and authority always overrides emotion. When you speak with fear, you release confusion, doubt, and delay into your atmosphere. Fear-based words are unstable. They scatter energy rather than direct it. But when you speak with faith, Paying, your words take on structure and focus. They become like arrows shot in the unseen, landing exactly where you intend them to. Paying, the universe cannot ignore words that carry faith because they mirror the voice that created it. Everything in existence was formed through divine speech. Paying, so creation is wired to respond when you echo that same tone of power and purpose. Faith is not wishful thinking, it's spiritual law in operation. Paying, when your words are aligned with faith, the impossible becomes logical and obstacles begin to shift in your favor. Faith-filled speech is not just saying positive things, it's about speaking from a deep conviction that what you declare already exists in the spiritual realm. Pain, when you say, "I am healed," you are not denying pain, you are affirming the higher truth that healing belongs to you. When you say, "Pain, doors are opening for me," you're not ignoring current obstacles, you're commanding the atmosphere to align with what has already been decreed in heaven. Pain, every time you speak faith, you create movement. You summon divine resources, rearrange timing, and activate alignment. Words of fear, on the other hand, paralyze potential. Pain, they instruct creation to stand still, to hold back, to withhold. Pain. That's why some people never see the breakthrough they desire. They pray for blessings, but cancel those prayers with fearful, doubtful speech. The faith-filled words also carry authority over timing. When you speak faith consistently, you accelerate what was delayed. Pain, you give your future a voice that cannot be silenced by circumstances. Life listens to faith because faith sounds like truth. Even when situations look impossible, faith says, "It's already done." That tone commands attention. Heaven moves when it hears conviction in your voice. Angels respond when your declarations echo divine law. Pain, but when you speak doubt, heaven cannot agree because heaven operates only in faith. You were never meant to speak from fear. You were created to decree from faith. Pain, when your mouth is filled with belief instead of hesitation, your environment shifts from resistance to cooperation. Faith-filled words invite creation to assist you. Pain, while fearful words push it away. Speak as one who knows creation is listening, because every time you do, pain, the universe begins to move at the sound of your voice. When you face challenges, your first instinct might be to describe them in detail. Pain, to talk about how hard things are or how unfair life feels. But describing your difficulty doesn't change it, it only magnifies it. Words are containers of power. And when you use them to repeat your pain, you give that pain authority to remain. The key is to align your words with your destiny, not your difficulty. Pain, that means speaking from the level of your purpose, not the level of your problem. Every situation in your life listens to what you say about it. And when you speak about your challenges as though they control you, you become a victim of your words. When you speak over them as though you've already overcome pain, you become the master of your circumstances. Your words are meant to command outcomes, not confirm obstacles. When you talk about how big your mountain is, the mountain grows. Pain. But when you talk to the mountain and declare that it must move, the atmosphere shifts. Faith doesn't waste time describing what it sees. Faith declares what it knows. And the more you rehearse your pain, the deeper it becomes ingrained in your spirit. But when you start rehearsing your promise, your mind begins to believe it. Pain in your life begins to align with it. Speaking your destiny is not denial, it's direction. You're giving your life an instruction to follow. You're saying, I refuse to let what I see dictate what I say. I will let what I believe dictate what I speak. That is how spiritual authority operates. Pain, every time you choose to speak faith instead of fear, vision instead of limitation, you are rewriting the narrative of your life. Pain, you are shifting the focus from your weakness to your potential. You stop feeding the problem and start feeding the promise. The more you do this, pain, the more your inner atmosphere changes. You begin to think differently, see differently, and act differently. Words don't just change circumstances, they change the speaker. Pain, the moment your mouth starts to agree with your destiny, your spirit awakens to new strength. You start to attract opportunities, wisdom, and resources that were invisible before, because your language has changed the frequency of your life. Speaking destiny also requires consistency. Pain, you can't speak faith one day and fear the next. You can't declare blessing in the morning and then cancel it with complaint by night. Words are seeds, pain, and they require steady watering through repetition. Every time you declare your destiny, you reinforce your belief and strengthen your spiritual authority. The process may not yield instant results, but it sets in motion forces that cannot fail. When you speak destiny, you are building momentum in the unseen. Pain, and that momentum eventually breaks through into the visible. You were never meant to use your words to describe defeat. You were designed to use them to declare victory. Pain, when you align your speech with your destiny, you stop reacting to life and start creating it. You become an active participant in your divine purpose. Pain, calling forth what belongs to you until your reality matches your confession. Your mouth is the steering wheel of your life. Pain, and every word you speak is a turn in a specific direction. If your words keep pointing backward toward regret, fear, and limitation, then no matter how hard you try to move forward, your life will circle the same territory again and again. Pain, you can't drive into a new season while your language is anchored to the old one. The direction of your life always follows the direction of your speech. Pain, that's why you can't afford to speak carelessly. Every statement you make about yourself, your future, and your circumstances is shaping the road ahead. Pain, if you constantly talk about what's missing, what's broken, or what's wrong, you're steering toward more of the same. Pain, but if you start speaking from a place of purpose and vision, your words begin carving a path toward transformation. When you understand that your mouth directs your destiny, you begin to take control of your internal navigation system. You stop reacting to every disappointment with complaint and start responding with command. You begin saying, pain, I'm still moving forward even when the road feels rough. You begin saying, something good is coming out of this, even when it looks uncertain. Pain, this is not wishful thinking, it's spiritual alignment. Your words become the GPS signals that guide your mind, your emotions, and even your actions. If your words are filled with doubt, your spirit drifts off course. But if your words are filled with faith, your spirit stays aligned with destiny. Pain, you can't steer your life by feelings, you steer it by declarations. Feelings fluctuate, but truth remains. Pain, your mouth is the bridge that keeps you connected to that truth. Every time you speak, you give your future a command. Words of power say forward. Words of fear say reverse. The more you speak from faith, the faster you accelerate toward your purpose. That's why you must be intentional with what comes out of your mouth. Pain, especially in moments of pressure. What you say when you're tested reveals whether your mouth is steering you toward purpose or away from it. Pain, if your language comes negative under pressure, you'll drift off the path of destiny. But if you can speak life even in struggle, your words will act like a compass, keeping you pointed toward victory no matter the storm. Your speech also affects how others interact with you. When you speak vision, people with vision are drawn to you. Pain, when you speak negativity, those who carry negativity attach themselves to you. Your words create an environment that either supports your journey or resists it. The people, pain, opportunities, and experiences that come into your life are often reflections of the direction your words have set. If you want your life to move differently, pain, your language must lead differently. Your mouth is not a mirror, it's a motor. It doesn't reflect your circumstances, it drives them. Every sentence is a decision, and pain, every declaration is a turn, and every confession is movement. When your mouth points toward destiny, pain, your life cannot help but follow. The words you speak are not just tools of communication, they are spiritual seeds that never die. Pain, every you release into the atmosphere plants itself somewhere, taking root in the soil of your reality. Some people are living in a harvest of words they spoke years ago. Pain, not realizing their mouth was sawing even when they thought they were joking or venting. The universe, your spirit, pain, and the unseen realm don't throw out sarcasm or frustration. They simply respond to what you say. That's why it's dangerous to speak casually about defeat, lack, or limitation. You may think you're just expressing how you feel, but what you're really doing is giving birth to it in the spirit. Words don't disappear. Pain, they create patterns that manifest over time. What you're living today might be the result of what you said yesterday. Pain, and what you say today will become the conditions of your tomorrow. If you treat your words like seeds, you'll stop throwing them carelessly. Pain, no farmer goes into a field and scatters poison among the crops he wants to grow, but that's exactly what happens when people speak negativity over their lives. Pain, they pray for abundance but talk poverty. They believe for healing but confess sickness. They dream of promotion but keep declaring, pain, and nothing ever works for me. The ground of your life is listening to your voice, waiting for instructions. Pain, it can't tell the difference between what you want and what you fear. It simply produces what you plant. So, if you constantly speak defeat, pain, the soil of your destiny brings forth more defeat. But when you fill your mouth with faith, hope, and power, your harvest shifts. Pain, your future begins to bloom with the fragrance of what you've spoken in alignment with truth. Pain, every conversation you have, whether with others or yourself, is a moment of planning. That's why you can't afford to use words that contradict your purpose. And you can't say you're moving forward and then declare how stuck you feel. You can't claim divine favor and then complain about constant bad luck. The tongue has the power to release either the fragrance of life or the stench of decay. When you begin to understand this, you start choosing your words like a skilled gardener chooses seeds, carefully, intentionally, and strategically. You start asking yourself before you speak, pain, do I want to see this grow in my life? If the answer is no, you don't let it leave your lips. Speaking life doesn't mean denying your reality. Pain, it means deciding not to empower your limitations. You can acknowledge a problem without prophesying its permanence. Instead of saying, I'm broke, you say, I'm in a rebuilding season. Instead of saying, I'm sick. Instead of saying, if healing, nothing is working, you say, everything is aligning in divine timing. The shift in vocabulary might seem small, but in the spiritual realm it's massive. Pain, your words are constructing the framework of your future, one declaration at a time. Speak with intention because the harvest is guaranteed. The only question is, pain, what seeds you're planting in your mouth today. Your mouth was never meant to agree with your circumstances. It was designed to align with your covenant. When you speak, pain, you're not supposed to repeat what you see. You are supposed to release what is promised. Many people stay trapped in cycles of frustration because they use their words to describe reality instead of declaring destiny. They say, I'm struggling, instead of, I'm overcoming. They say, I'm broken, instead of, I'm being restored. But your mouth carries creative power, not descriptive power. Pain, its purpose is not to echo what is happening, it's to establish what must happen. You were created in the image of the one who spoke worlds into existence. Pain. That same authority flows through your voice. When your mouth agrees with the higher truth of what's written about you, pain, your situation begins to bend under the weight of your words. Reality doesn't shape your speech shapes reality. Pain, you can't speak from a place of frustration and expect the future to sound like victory. Frustration is the language of sight. Faith is the language of vision. When you start declaring promises instead of problems, you're shifting from being a reporter to being a creator. The world is full of people reporting how bad things are, Pain, but very few are speaking the solution with conviction. Your mouth given to you to build, not to broadcast negativity. Every time you speak in alignment with faith, pain, you are releasing blueprints in the unseen. The unseen begins constructing what your words have authorized. Pain. And this is why Scripture said you shall have whatever you say, not whatever you wish, think, or hope for, but whatever you say. Speech is spiritual legislation. Pain, you legislate your destiny through the decrees of your mouth. When you align your mouth with your covenant, you stop letting circumstances dictate your confession. Pain, you might be facing lack, but you still declare provision. You might be standing in pain, but you still declare healing. You might be surrounded by confusion, pain, but you still declare peace. This isn't denial, it's dominion. Dominion means you speak from the position of authority, not reaction. You're not ignoring what's wrong. Pain, you're commanding it to align with what's right. The moment you open your mouth with conviction, heaven begins to back your decree. Pain, every force in creation is waiting for a sound of alignment, a sound of faith, a sound of authority. When that sound is released through your voice, pain, doors begin to open, mountains begin to move, and situations begin to shift. The difference between stagnation and acceleration is often found in the language you use daily. Pain, your mouth is either reinforcing your prison or releasing your promise. That's why every word must be intentional, anchored in truth, and charged with faith. Pain, when you speak covenant words, you're not begging for change, you're authorizing it. You're not reacting to your world, you're rewriting it. The key is consistency. And you can't speak faith one day and fear the next and expect power to flow. You must train your tongue to stay rooted in the promise until the promise manifests. Eventually, pain, your mouth will no longer echo the pain of your past. It will establish the reality of your purpose. Gratitude is the language that multiplies what you already have. Pain, when your mouth is filled with thankfulness instead of complaint, you create an atmosphere that attracts increase. Every grateful word becomes a magnet for more blessings. Pain, because gratitude aligns your spirit, abundance, not lack. Even in seasons of waiting, speaking thanks activates unseen movement in your favor. Pain, a grateful mouth silences fear, shifts focus from what's missing to what's manifesting, and opens the flow of divine provision. The more you speak gratitude, and the more life begins to respond with opportunities, peace, and favor beyond your imagination.